Hello, everybody. We are back. We're back
We are
and we're
back.
dancing because we have a lot of energy and we're not tired at all.
Oh,
um,
because I've had a lot of coffee today, thanks to my unlimited coffee subscription.
yeah, Jonathan's big news for the week is that he got an unlimited coffee subscription to Panera.
It's cheaper than actually making it myself every day because I
What is
I drive
what is the
past it.
new drink they have? They have like this like in-house energy drink that they make that like a bunch of people started getting and they were saying, "Oh, it's so delicious." And then realizing that they felt like they were having a heart attack because it's got like 4 times the recommended daily
Go
amount of caffeine.
sign me up. I'm gonna go in there a little bit later today on my way to pick up my daughter, and well, I'm gonna find this energy drink, man. I'm excited. Yeah, it's going. It's
Caffeinated
working.
caffeinated lemonade chargers. I think that's what they were. The
Uh,
chargers.
that may not be on the all you can drink plan.
May not be on there, but we're doing great this week. I'm doing great this week. I don't want to speak for Jonathan. I think Jonathan's doing great though.
I'm doing quite well this week. I'm starting to realize that people are flowing back in from vacation,
Yeah,
from wherever it is, and no, it's pretty cool. I actually had a great week. I just wanted to say that I got to go to a concert for the first time in like a year,
nice.
because that's what happens when you're a parent, and and it was just incredible. It was a band that I first saw 23 years ago, and they are still rocking, and I got to see them again. So it was good.
Nice.
Good time. Good time.
Yeah, I'm going to a concert next weekend. My nephew is coming into town and he's a huge Swiftie, and so he bought tickets for us to go see Taylor Swift, which is going to be great.
Oh,
I'm not a
I'm
huge
actually
Swiftie,
kind of
but it's
I'm
going to be super
jealous.
fun. It's going to be
I've only
super
read
fun.
great things about the shows.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It was really fun having a conversation with him, not being a Taylor Swift person. It was super fun having a conversation with him where he was asking me what my Eras outfit was going to be, and I was like, I've heard all of those words individually before, but not in that order, and I need you
So,
to clarify for me.
excuse me, but you're speaking in was it Gen Z? I
Gen
I don't
Z, yeah.
I only speak millennial.
Yeah, is it a pupper or a doggo? Because then I can help you.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Anyway,
Welcome to GPS Live for the week of. Oh, let's get our little banner going.
oh,
You
I'm
got it
already on top of it.
already on top of it. For the week of July 14th, 2023. I'm Tristan.
And I am Jonathan Singer.
And we are here to talk about some cybersecurity news, regardless of what the last several minutes of content have been. But before we start talking about news, we do have to let you know that our opinions that we express are our own and do not necessarily reflect GuidePoint Security directly. So we're just two dudes talking about cyber stuff and having a good time.
Of
But
course.
we do have some great stories this week. Well, I mean, we
Oh,
have okay stories this week. It was a weird week.
so we initially thought that there wasn't a lot going on, but then when we really started to dig into it,
Yeah.
there's a couple things. Shall we kick it off with the high red alerts? The everybody needs to know this is the
Everybody needs to know this is the first
and
one
so
coming up. Apple releasing patches on top of patches.
but
Um,
but not just that simple. So if you do have an iOS device, you've probably noticed lots of notifications from your settings app saying you need to update. But it seems like even though you just updated, there's another update, right? Like,
yeah,
and that is correct. There was several iterations of the updates coming out this week, to fix some serious stuff. But accidentally breaking some things along the way, whoops, and then fixing those breaks in some more stuff.
yeah. So to credit where credit is due, Jonathan, I think, collected most of these stories. I think I got like one in there. And I have not had much of a chance to review most of these stories because I had a action-packed morning as we're preparing for next week's release of the quarterly Grit report. So I haven't had much time to go through these, but my understanding of this one is that they pushed out a patch to fix a already actively exploited WebKit vulnerability
Yeah.
that allowed for arbitrary code execution just by sending some malicious web content to someone. And that in itself, I believe, was a fix for another thing that they had accidentally broken, but they'd also broken Safari, the built-in web browser, through one of their
Yeah.
patches. They've just been running after these bugs at a breakneck pace.
Now, Apple does take this stuff pretty seriously because this is what's classified under their Rapid Security Response Update, or RSR.
Mhm.
And so when things like this surface, where it is an ODay that's actively being exploited or fairly simple and trivial to achieve, and could be leveraged by like state-sponsored attackers or commercial spyware vendors, they
Mhm.
kick out these releases of rapid security response patches. And as we see, sometimes they pass QA initially, but you'll still have to do it. So for those playing along at home, when you click the settings app on your phone, you're looking for revision C of this week's patches. That is again
Released A.
revision C
Go to
for
C.
C for cat. And Apple's not the only one dealing with a ton of stuff this week. In fact, it is Patch Tuesday, the little known celebrated holiday at Big Blue, and they're doing what, a record whopping, I think it was
132.
132, yeah,
Yeah, 132
vulnerabilities.
vulnerabilities.
Um,
Let's see if we can do this entire story talking at the same time.
no, we're doing
Same.
a great job.
Yeah. Six active vulnerabilities, or six under attack active vulnerabilities included in that. But the most severe being CVE 2336.884, which was allowed people to use a specially crafted Microsoft Office document to exploit some stuff. So basically that one was being used against I think or no, it wasn't being used against anyone, but it was a specially crafted document related to the Ukrainian World Congress.
Mhm.
Um, and so this would look like something important that you should have to open and read, which is the basis of all phishing, right? Open this thing. But it allowed remote code execution in on the victim system, obviously. But they'd have to convince you to open the malicious file. But it turns out, specially crafted Microsoft Word documents are not hard to to procure and edit. So
Yeah, and so this also goes on to talk about some other vulnerabilities. Now, I'm not gonna just jump out and say the name of this open source tool, but if you do review the article on the Hacker News,
yeah,
you'll find it's cleverly named Cert Verify Time Validity functionality was taken over. But what's happening is there is a bit of a loophole to alter the signing date for certain drivers prior to July in 2015. I know it sounds like it's a really arbitrary old kind of driver certificate thing, but it is being taken advantage of also. And so
yeah.
Microsoft hasn't applied a CVE to this particularly, but it is part of an post exploitation play, to kind of privilege escalate once on the system. So all of you out there with your iOS devices and your Macs, and all of you Windows people, please take the
Well,
time to update this week.
and we gave iOS users some specific instructions of what they were looking for. Microsoft also released some specific instructions regarding that malicious Office document, and how to mitigate that. And that is to use the block all Office applications from creating child processes attack surface rule, which could cause some problems when you think about the fact like sometimes there are links that you want to click on and open
Mhm.
inside of Office documents. But they are urging this one is severe enough that you just block Office applications from creating child processes at all.
Yeah.
So go for that one until you get this patch Tuesday verified for your organization installed.
There you go. No, it's definitely been busy as far as the fixing phase goes. But
Fixing
I don't, I
phase.
don't, I don't, I don't have a whole lot more on the fixing stuff. Hey, you Apple fans, go fix. Hey, you Microsoft users, go fix, please. I
Go.
mean, no, I mean, like, that's not really an ask. Like, for the safeness and security of the internet,
It's
please.
kind of a moral imperative.
Yeah.
But speaking of fixing things, fixing long running issues, Google has made some changes to their App Store policies and who they will allow to publish applications. This is in response to kind of the wave of malware that has been plaguing the Google Play Store for Android devices. Um, and the check and certification process there. So, Jonathan, what have they changed about their process? I'm gonna put my knife. I don't know why I'm fidgeting with my knife so much. I need to put it away.
You have your fidget twitch thing. So, as you mentioned, right, historically, the Play Store kind of has this tendency of being, there's a lot of malware, spyware, things that are data collecting, malicious things of the sort. And so, finally, Google is saying, all right, how about we lay down the law by requiring you to prove that you are an actual business. And what's happening is starting at the end of August this year, new or requiring all developers that are creating new Play Console accounts, they have to provide what's called a DUNS number, DUNS number, which is Data Universal Numbering System, coming directly to us from our friends over at Dun and Bradstreet, who is kind of put in charge here to help verify the validity of organizations and businesses. And so the company has to go to Dun and Bradstreet to get a DUNS number, therefore to complete the verification forms for Google, to be allowed to continue to add their apps.
Yeah. It is important to note that this is not something that you have to do for on an individual application basis, right? This is just when you're creating your publisher account with Google Play. It's a little concerning to me that there's kind of like a single point that you have to go through. Everything has to go through Dun and Bradstreet to get this, right. Like there's not just there's not the ability to kind of verify through other methods. That could end up being kind of a pain point for this process. Also, that it takes up to 30 days to get that number once you've submitted. And the reason that I mention that is because you know growing up in the kind of revolution of smartphones and app-based I guess culture, right? Across our mobile devices. One of the key points early on in the process was this is going to revolutionize and completely change what it means to be like a software developer, because anyone can make an app and anyone can get it out there and it could take off. You look at stuff like years ago, stuff like Flappy Bird that just took over the
Dude,
world, right?
you read my mind exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great example.
Yeah, I mean, that was just a guy kind of working on a simple game in his downtime. He published it and overnight almost like became a millionaire
Hmm.
because of it. But this is just putting kind of one more hurdle in the place of that. Now you have to actually have a business set up and registered, which means you're going to have the taxes set up and ready to go. And then you have to go
Hmm.
to Dun and Bradstreet with all that documentation, wait 30 days and get that out there. If you're trying to capitalize on some kind of zeitgeist, like a cultural moment with an application, this is really going to hamper that. But the trade-off being now we'll be able to actually track where these apps are coming from. Um, and because of this, they're also changing the contact information. Um, so previously, that section hosted developer's name, email, and location, but now it's also going to include company name, complete office address, website URL, and phone number. And I have to imagine that part of this is also to separate Google's culpability legally from instances of malicious applications being hosted on the Play Store.
Yeah. And so a little bit of background, why even go this direction? It just so happens that this DUNS number system is, considered globally recognized, right? And
Right.
it's a recognized proprietary standard used by both here in the United States and the European Commission and the United Nations. Now, apparently, Apple also, in a weird twist of things, is also saying, "Hey, Google, we recognize it too," and they do say that it is trustworthy. So the question is the creativity aspect of people being able to really flourish in this kind of market versus how do we crack down on somebody uploading something malicious, getting their account terminated, getting the app removed, and then turning around a week later and creating a new account and re-uploading something similar, and this kind of never-ending cycle of attack on the Android market. And so it is an interesting decision to kind of take, but it may also cause a lot of people to potentially turn their little idea into a small business. We'll see. There's a lot of different takes on it.
If you're watching right now, what are your thoughts on this kind of change? Right, we're trying to be more proactive about engaging our commenters and engaging with our audience. So if you have some thoughts on this and the changes that it could make, now I am seeing on the story itself, which came to us from Bleeping Computer. One of the commenters there did mention that their understanding is that the DUNS number would be required for organizations, but not for personal use accounts, which may kind of undermine the impact of this if a malicious actor could just switch to a personal use account. And they're saying that, but that doesn't quite seem to make sense for me. I don't think that Google would go through this switch and this change without requiring it for all accounts.
According to the Android developers blog, which is referenced in the article, when you create a new Play Console developer account for an organization, and it highlights organization specifically, you now need to provide a DUNS number assigned by Dun & Bradstreet. And so that does, I guess, leave a bit of ambiguity around personal developers. But then again, I've never developed an Android app. So if any of our listeners know about the process that goes into it, do you need to prove that you're a business, or can you be an individual and kind of have a different set of steps? We'd love to know what's going out there in the real world.
Yeah. What do you want to jump to next? We got
I
some
want
options.
I want to jump to the security not being security plugin.
Security not being security plugin. Well, that's a good one. This was a fun story.
Yeah, I love it, and this one, credit goes to you for finding this one, and I don't want to steal too much of the thunder because I am a WordPress website administrator myself, and kind of taking that risk of running WordPress for a number of different sites. Luckily, I haven't had any security incidents that I'm aware of, but that's usually helped to keeping it updated and the different security plugins that are available. Sadly, not all the security plugins do a good job of their own security, right? Is that what we're seeing here?
Right, exactly. So this particular issue is with a plugin called AIOS, or All-in-One Security, which, if you are in the security space, all-in-one is probably not the thing that you're looking for in most cases. As a podcast that I like to listen to likes to say about medicine, cure-alls cure nothing.
It's that quack medicine from back in the day.
Yeah, exactly. So, but all-in-one security, it's actually a very popular plugin. They had a bug introduced in version 5.1.9 of their plugin that caused users' passwords to be added to a database in plain text format. So just zero security at all on the passwords themselves. So what this means is that a malicious site admin would be able to just go in and view all of the passwords plain text.
Yeah. Now, of course, it's not always that simple, right? For an outsider, somebody who doesn't already have system access or admin access to the WordPress website, you would still need to figure out how to gain access to that database. So in one side of it, you should never, I mean, this is classic right here, never write plain text passwords to a database. They should be hashed, and hashed appropriately too, not some weak sauce. But second off,
says genius level security being implemented.
The genius level security is happening every day. Everybody, thank you, listeners. But yeah, so there, it's not necessarily something to sound alarms immediately. You do have to have some sense of privilege already to the system, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other side channels that could potentially be used to view the database. For instance, if you're a host, if you're already on the host system, you could potentially view it maybe due to lax permissions or other mechanisms. So there are kind of things. Now, if used in conjunction with other vulnerabilities, like one that was out for a different plugin that had full remote code execution, you could then upload some kind of web shell, access the database using the user's information, and then reveal the passwords. But it's a little bit tricky. So don't storm in plain text, but luckily you have to be a who's who.
and it's as you mentioned when we were talking about this before the call, and we were saying, hey, someone could get access to this from outside, and you said, well, if they had an admin account, they could just change the passwords on their own anyway to gain access. But the risk there isn't necessarily like being able to leverage people's passwords to access that specific application or site. It's the fact that password reuse is so common, right? So if you have a malicious administrator who has an access to a plain text document of every user's passwords, it's going to be pretty trivial for them to just automatically go out and scrape and see, hey, where else have they used these passwords and what can we gain access to? The number of people that I personally know who I know use the same password for things like their bank account as they do for something like Netflix, simply because I can watch the movement of their fingers across the keyboard. I don't even have to know the password. I just know the way they're moving their thumbs. I'm like, you've used the same password for your bank account, haven't you?
Hey, viewers, give this show a thumbs up if you use the same password everywhere.
Yeah.
I want to use something that you just said actually is a great segue to our next story, though, which
Perfect.
is a malicious admin.
Yeah.
It is the perfect segue to a story coming to us straight out of the San Francisco Chronicle. A former worker from the East Bay water treatment plant was charged in a cybersecurity attack, and the basis of this story goes back a while. He was this individual was a contractor from 2016 to 2020, working and overseeing the plant's computer systems. I mean, we're talking water treatment plants, so we're talking pumps and chlorinators and all kinds of really delicate things that directly affect the consumers of the water coming in and out of this system.
Yeah.
And shortly after this fellow's resignation, uh, he utilized some remote control software that he had installed to dial back in. Long gone, but insider threat coming back for circle round two,
Yeah.
and intentionally uninstalled the main operational and monitoring systems. I mean,
that's a big
yeah.
that's a big whoopsie. That's a big whoopsie doozy. This he was a like, as you mentioned, a SCADA contractor from a company in Massachusetts. And I think as we were doing some digging to try and figure out a little bit more about this, you found that he may not have ever even been in California, um, and was potentially a remote administrator. Is that what you were finding?
I was trying to dig up this individual's LinkedIn. I'm not suggesting everybody go and cyber stalk,
Right.
but the fact that remote access software was initially installed on not just the systems at the water treatment plant, but also this individual's personal computer to perform remote work, which is more common than you would think. That's
Exactly.
actually
Yeah.
how that happened here in a local Tampa municipality. We had our water treatment plant attacked because of a remote suite that was utilized by contractors. But this individual took it a step further. They disabled the software. We're talking pressure, filtration, chemical levels,
Yeah.
and went very quickly from cyber criminal to terrorist.
Yeah. And it is stated in the articles that we found that this all took place after his resignation. So that leaves it a little bit murky as to what the potential motives could have been there, right? If it wasn't like a hostile kind of firing or anything like that. So we don't want to speculate on what the motives could have been here, and why he would have done this, and if it was for actual cybercrime activity or some other reason, right? But that impacted 15,000, I think it was, residents of the local area, shutting off a lot of the vital systems for their water treatment. And this just kind of, I think, goes back to the importance of hey, your insider threat is still important even after they leave and become an outsider, right? He had just installed the software that they were using on his personal computer, so he was able to continue accessing that stuff. But also, some of the articles that I didn't highlight when Jonathan and I were planning was there was a lot of coverage of the presidential administration's outlines on how to actually implement. Recently, they released guidance on implementing the National Cybersecurity Plan.
Nice.
that had been released, and that focuses heavily on vital systems and critical infrastructure like water treatment, like power, like fuel, because those are weak areas. I mean, I think we all recognize that those are pretty weak areas as far as cybersecurity goes. It's hard to keep those kind of systems up to date when they are as broad and sweeping, across the country as they are. So this is just another kind of little point to illustrate, like, yeah, these systems are vulnerable, and we have to be staying on top of this.
Absolutely, and that kind of helps us segue into our last story, because things aren't just happening over here in the United States with NIST and our cybersecurity, suggestions and government kind of awareness. Over our friends over across the pond in the EU are looking at what's called the AI Act, and not to kind of jump all in on AI this and machine learning that, but there is discussion about how this is going to have a direct impact on the concept of cybersecurity at large. Yes, people are
Mhm.
putting it in their sales and marketing. Yes, we are seeing companies like Microsoft integrating AI into their security tool suites, right? We're starting
Right.
to see that from the Azure side of the house. But one of the stories I actually didn't kind of talk about before the show was that there is a measured increase in AI related phishing, where individuals who may have not had English as their first language that are targeting English speaking countries are
Yeah.
moving towards AI to help maybe communicate better or get their message across without being as quickly discovered as a fraudster. But
Right.
the bigger picture is, where are we going with AI integration? Are we going to be at the age of the cyber war where AI is taking on AI in front of our eyes over the wire?
Right. It's I was just speaking with one of our other co-hosts that has been on this show before, Curtis Brazel. He takes an interest in this kind of stuff. And he's written some excellent pieces on AI and cybersecurity. And I was just talking to him about this the other day for some upcoming content that we'll be releasing. But about the impacts of AI not only on attackers but also on defenders and the ways that we are integrating AI into our processes. So you've got the red team side of things. They're able to utilize AI to very quickly generate the platforms and the tools that they're going to use for something like a penetration test. And that is, they're doing that as well to be in line with what they expect attackers will be doing, right? If you can start to recognize what an AI generated email looks like, because it can be subtle, but there are there are some tells sometimes, like capitalization or punctuation, some weird sentence structures sometimes. But also the ways that we're using AI in the tools themselves that we're using to defend ourselves. And it really will, I think, become a game of just escalating power in the AI space of how are attackers leveraging AI and building new AI. For example, some samples of malware have already been found that make calls to chat gpt and other tools to rewrite their own code to accomplish the same goals but be functionally different, and that way they can bypass some security checks. So they do that at execution. They say, hey, rewrite this chunk of my code so that I can run it later. We're going to have to start looking, building tools that say, like, hey, what's making calls to specifically chat gpt's api, what things are being pushed out there. And then in general, the EU very focused on privacy laws, right?
They call it privacy. Privacy.
Privacy, very focused on privacy laws. So they're very focused on their privacy initiatives. And how is AI being used, or how is AI being built to protect and safeguard privacy is a huge issue for them and for cybersecurity in general.
We also saw in the news recently about how different organizations and individuals are going after companies like Microsoft and OpenAI for
Yeah.
sourcing data from them. And from a privacy perspective, you have to train these models with data sets from somewhere. And we saw this with the image generation, where artwork was used as references. and a lot of that artwork was already copyrighted. And so how does that directly affect the generation of referencing a copyrighted one to make something new, versus incorporating components of that? And so the concept of privacy requirements and AI is going to be an interesting challenge, to make the AI models useful without digging too deep into privacy data that's directly going to, I don't know, influence someone's personal life.
Exactly. Well, we are at the top of the hour. So I don't want to cut the story short, but I think we both do have things that we have to run and do. And so do our viewers. So we don't want to keep you guys too much longer. But thank you so much for joining us for GPS Live for the week of July 14th, 2023. Until next time, I have been and will continue to be Tristan Morris.
And I am Jonathan Singer.
And we will catch you all next time.